welcome back to Proper Conversations. As you can see, I'm alone this week, so it will be just us. But we're going to be continuing with the discussion of life choices. However, I just want to make a few notifications before. I started a GoFundMe account, so I'd love for you guys to go and follow. I'll put the link in the description box below. The GoFundMe is in aid of the Moms Matter Assistance Program that I have, Essential Relief Day Spa, and Proper Conversations. So I'd love for you guys to go like and support, share it, so that we can build and grow together. Thank you so much for your support in advance. Alright, so we're going to jump right in to continuing the conversation with life choices. Now, I've had a week. So one of the things that I realized I'm becoming a lot more passionate about, it's always been something I've been passionate about, but even more so I guess now because I am pregnant and having to hear the stories of other persons who are pregnant and the things that they are going through, dealing with the healthcare system. I decided that I'm going to use this week to talk about that. Making the decision to become a mother is not one that I believe any woman takes lightly, because it essentially changes your entire life. It changes every decision that you have to make. It changes how you now go about your life. You may have to make goal changes, timeline changes. If you have a partner, you now have to consider this other person. So there's a lot of things that goes into making the decision to bring forth a child, which I'm not advocating for having abortions, but I'm also not completely okay with taking that choice away from any woman, because becoming pregnant can happen in a myriad of ways. She could have been sexually assaulted, or she could be in a position where she is absolutely, whether she's underage or she is not mentally or financially stable to take care of a child. So, or where she would be possibly life threatening to that child, or the pregnancy itself may be life threatening to her. So there are a lot of choices, a lot of factors, a lot of things that come into making the decision to becoming a mother. I am I'm not even sure what the word. I'm saddened. I'm saddened by the lack of the importance that is placed on women, on pregnant women. As I said, I've had a week. So I had to be on the road quite a bit this week. So I went to a few places. There were some places that I must say were very understanding, very accommodating, very aware of the fact that I was pregnant, and made sure to expedite things so that I didn't have to be standing in long lines or long waits, and prioritizing me because I was pregnant, and I was greatly appreciative of that. However, there are other places where I went, and I realized that the men very, very callous, and to some extent I can understand that, because they have no idea what it is to be a woman. They have no idea what a woman's body goes through and endures just on a regular basis. Let's not even throw in being pregnant. Let's just talk about being a woman and what a woman's body has to go through on a monthly basis. That in itself is a whole other experience. But then to add being pregnant on top of that, your body is literally producing a human being. So it has to double everything that it's doing. It's working overtime. So it pulling from you. Being pregnant is literally having a being suck everything from you to build it. And it may not all, because we can't see that process happening on the outside. I think sometimes we become very cold and very cold to what that actually means and what that woman's body is actually going through. Now, all of us have mothers, and we could not be here without our mothers making the decision to bring us here, to go through that, to put her body through that. And being pregnant is a life and death situation. It really is. It is a life and death situation that you have made the decision to go into. So it's not just a physical thing, it's a mental thing, it's an emotional thing. It is your entire being restructured to facilitate the growth of this life. And the disregard or the nonchalant way that it is being treated, even in the hospitals where these doctors and nurses have to deal with patients. I mean, yes, it's something you deal with every single day, but every single person is different. Every single human being is a human being and deserves to be treated as such. And understanding this psychological part of it, I really do not think is paid much attention to, especially in the health field, when you have to be in the hospital and when they are only concerned with your physical. So if your blood pressure is not high, or if you're not bleeding out, or if something detrimental is not happening with you physically, they tend to overlook you and just be kind of shove you in a corner, and you're not a priority right now. The psychological part of it, our minds control everything that happens to our body. There are some involuntary things that happen, but your mind, you can literally manifest an illness. You can literally manifest your healing. You can literally manifest pain. I was doing some research and it shows that being emotional pain registers in your brain. Your brain can't tell the difference if you are feeling physical pain or if you're experiencing emotional pain. So heartbreak to your mind, to your brain, is registered just as painful as a gunshot or some other physical thing happening to you. So just because there's not a physical representation of the pain you're enduring does not mean your brain is not processing that, and therefore your body is dealing with that pain internally. So I'm using my platform to try and find a way. I really want to genuinely understand what the mindset of the persons who are in the position of making change think, and what is it that they use to make the decisions that they make when it comes on to prenatal care. I'm genuinely interested in finding out, and I'm going to seek that information. If you guys know somebody I can speak to who is in the ministry that I can speak to and have an in-depth conversation to get a better understanding, I would really love to, because what is being shown and what is being portrayed and what's being acted out or lived out and the policies that are being put in place do not suggest that there is any kind of consideration being taken to the psychological and mental and emotional aspect of a woman who has just given birth or a woman who is with child. Now, my decision to become a mother, I only ever plan to have one child. My decision, my everybody has a plan for their life and how they think their life is gonna play out. And I had my daughter at 21, and that was a deliberate decision. I made the decision to have my daughter at 21 because I wanted to be around for her. I wanted us to grow together. I wanted her to have her mother young so that we could experience things and I could be there for her at a young stage. And that was a deliberate decision, and I made that decision. My pregnancy was, I was past date. I was 2 weeks past my due date because my body does not naturally go into labor. So that means I was having contractions for 2 weeks, but I was not dilating. So I was the two weeks post date is what they call it, which is past your due date. So therefore she started to go into distress, and I started to go into distress, and I had to be induced. Now let me tell you something. Okay? Being induced is the most painful thing that I believe a woman can go through pregnancy itself, right? Labor itself is painful. Pregnancy is a life and death situation. So I had to be induced. And for those of you who know me personally and pay attention, you'll realize that every time I am pregnant, I cut off my hair. One particular reason is because of the pain that I know I will endure, and if I have hair on my head, chances are I will pull it out. Anybody who also knows me very well knows that my pain threshold is extremely high, too high sometimes. So when I tell you that the pain is real, let me tell you, it was an experience, right? Then I will be honest, in that time when I did have my daughter though, the service that I experienced, because I had all my children at the Spanish Town Hospital, my experience there with my daughter was much better than my experience with my son, which was 9 years later. And we didn't realize that I don't go into labor naturally, so they sent me home. And a week later I went to the clinic for my next visit, and I started having severe headaches. I was in severe pain in my stomach while I was at the clinic waiting, and my blood pressure went through the roof. Now my blood pressure is normally low, so what is normal blood pressure for everybody is high for me. So fortunately that day I had a nurse. It was a new nurse who was doing the checks for us, and immediately she recognized the signs that I was having preeclampsia. Now preeclampsia is a very life-threatening, so she told me to rush to the hospital, and I did so. However, I got to the hospital, they were able to get my pressure under control and slow down the pains I was in, but the baby was still in distress because I was a week post-date and still having contractions, but again, not dilating. So guess what? Would it have to get induced again? But this time, because my cervix was so stubborn, and I can tell you why it was different this time. First time when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was in a relationship, so therefore I was having sex frequently, and that helped. That's another fact. If you are pregnant, having frequent sex helps because the sperm helps to soften the cervix, so when the time comes, it does what it needs to do and soften it and help the process of the baby coming freely. When I was pregnant with my son, I was not having sex, so therefore my cervix was fully stubborn. So Goody had to get 3 doses of induction. I got the inserts and I got 2 injections. Let me tell you. nearer to God. Nearer and nearer. I saw the lights and I was very tempted to go into it because the pain was real. And on top of that, the service at the hospital was horrible. It was horrible. It was horrible. It was horrible. From the minute I got to the hospital, the service was horrible. So that just made the experience that much worse. After I had baby, oh, it just got worse. The pediatrician that I had to deal with was horrible. She was a royal witch with a B. And then the nurses were horrible. And just everybody know, if you don't have links in a certain situation, them deal with you like you're not a person. And I had to get very stern and very adamant that I was not going to tolerate being mistreated or my child to be mistreated, because my son was 9 pounds 4 ounces. My daughter was 8 pounds 4 ounces, which is a big baby, and my son was 9 pounds 4 ounces. So that was cause for concern, because they tend to say that bigger babies present with diabetes. So they wanted to do all kind of tests and stuff. Now, I had seen a doctor in the morning who told me my baby was fine and we could be discharged later on, but because of the distress of the pregnancy, I would have had to be there a little bit longer, because his levels, his white blood cells levels were extremely high, and so were mine. So they had to monitor that to make sure everything calmed down and we were okay before they would send us home. Now, this other pediatrician, and what irritated me even more is she was a female. The male one that I dealt with was also, I think he was an Indian doctor. So he came, did his checks, made sure everything was fine, said, okay, you guys are good to go. She came, and she, first of all, the Spanish Town Hospital is, everybody is pretty much in one big room, just the beds. There is no privacy. So she walks through the ward, and everybody is supposed to take their breast out, and she walks around to squeeze and examine if you're producing milk. Now, this is another fact that I need to put out there for people who have just, women who have just had children. Let me explain something to you. The first 4 days after giving birth, you will not produce milk. What you will produce is a white or a creamy liquid that is called colostrum. This colostrum has all the antibodies, all the vitamins that your baby will need for the first 4 days. So if after the 4 days it's not coming in, and what we also need to understand is, I said the mental part of it is very vital as well. If you are stressed out or worrying about it, it can limit your milk production. So if you are deciding to breastfeed and there are not other issues, because some persons just don't produce, or they don't produce enough, or they produce only for a short time, a lot of factors can go into play. Production is a supply and demand situation, so the more the baby sucks is the more the milk will come down. That's just something I need to put out there, because that's not being told to the women, so therefore they're panicking. Okay, so back to my story. She came on the ward, and she pretty much just put everybody on display. Everybody's in this open area, and she's just telling everybody, just take out your breast, and she'll walk around and just squeeze your breast to see if you're producing any milk or whatever. No. Yes, we're all sharing this beautiful moment where we have just had children, but we're all still individuals. We're all still people. I don't want to be sitting over here and looking at everybody else's boob, or anybody else looking at my boob, or just random people having access to my body parts like that. Go to each person's bed individually, create some kind of privacy, and deal with each person as a person. Ooh. So that was one of the many things that was part of it. Then she came to my son. Oh my God, the first thing she had to say, oh, this baby is so big. And it's like some red bells or whistles went off into her head, like, oh, here comes an experiment on me. And she took my son, and she, first thing she said is, oh, this baby is so big and he's jaundice, and she squeezed my breast and said, you're not producing any milk, so the baby can't get enough. I said he was just born. And what also I realized is, because you're in a public hospital, they treat you like you have no other options or you have no sense. So when I started to address her and have her understand, sweetie, I'm fully aware of what's going on here and what needs to happen, he is fine. And the other doctor checked him and said he's fine. So what is your problem? She proceeds to take my child and go with him to, she told me she's going to prick his foot bottom to get his blood type. And she walked off with him to the front of the room, not knowing I was following behind her. And I went behind the curtain just in time to see her have this long ass needle to try and push into my child to take his blood. And I said to her, excuse me, what the hell are you doing? Mother, you can't be behind there. I said, there is nowhere in this hospital that you're going to take my child and I won't be there. I'm sorry, that's not going to. Well, you want us to not treat him? I said, no problem. Please give me the discharge papers. I will sign it and leave. Well, if anything happens to you after you leave here, that's not our business. I said, that's fine. I'm not going to stay in here and have you do anything to my child and then talk to me as if I'm some invalid. No. Right? Then she going on and she going, I say, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you. And I turned and I said, what? I said, I bet you come here tomorrow morning and don't have no work. And I just walked off and went to get my phone. Now let me say, I never have nobody to call. I don't know who I was going to call. But when they don't understand, when they think that there is somebody for you to call, or when they believe that there is a higher authority for you to have access to, their attitude towards you changes immediately, which suggests that they do not have to behave that way. And her entire demeanor changed. Okay, mommy, let me explain. Let me tell you what is happening. Let me explain. I said, that's how you deal with people. You don't come carton off my opinion when we just spend 9 hours in a labor with to have you go come take him up and do as you please with him and don't explain to me what is happening. Are you crazy? Then, after she did all of that, she proceeded to say that he has jaundice. Had she paid any attention, she would have realized the type of jaundice he had. However, when they discharged me and admitted him the same day that I was supposed to be discharged, I went down. They had him in the NICU because his sodium levels were high. When I went down to check on him, the doctor I spoke to, she said, once the sodium levels come down, that's the results we're waiting on, he will be able to go home. He's fine. Well, by evening when the next doctor, the same pediatrician, she come back. She admit my Brittany. And this is after they discharged me. So when I go down there now to collect my child, this is when I'm learning that they have admitted my child and I can't take him home. So I'm saying to her, what is the issue why I can't take him home? Because the other doctor, two other doctors checked him and said he was fine. She is insisting that he needs to stay because he has the jaundice and he needs to go under the UV light. So when she said to me, his levels are high, so we have to admit him. So I said to her, what are his levels? She is going to look at me and say, it doesn't make sense. She explained because it's not like I'm going to understand. So I said to her, what are his bilirubin levels? What is his level? Because the normal, if he's above a certain amount, then I can understand that he's high risk. If not, it is because we just had a traumatic delivery of 9 hours and he was already post-date. So therefore, that's understandable. However, his other levels are fine. So I said to her, what are his bilirubin levels? She opened up her eye and looked at me like, oh, so you're an idiot. You know what you're talking about? Yes, you know what I'm talking about. And when she told me what his levels were literally 2 stages above what would have been normal. Say the level is 10 and the normal level is 10, he was at 12. So I said to her, but that's not abnormal given that we just had a 9-hour delivery. I had to be induced and we were 1 week post-date. That's not abnormal. She's like, yes, but she can't have him leave until the levels come down, and blah 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 blah, and just being completely dismissive of what I was trying to say to her. So she took my son, again walking up with him, not knowing that I was following behind her, into a room to put the IV into his hand. And when I tell you that she had my child on the table like a rag doll, and the receiver and the countertop that he was on was very slight, it was very slippery. So every time she pulled his hand forward, his body would come forward, and she used her hand and she pushed him back, and she put. Now the room she was in was locked. When she went in, the door locked from the inside. So I am now trying to pull this door to go in to grab my, maybe grab she today, how I was feeling, to get my child away from this woman. Then she turns around and realizes that I'm out there watching her. She puts the IV in his hand and wraps it up, and she comes back out and she starts yelling at me, and she starts yelling at the security. Why is she around here? Why is she following? I said, there is nowhere in this hospital you will take my child unless it's in a surgery. That I will not be. And I said, why is it that you need to be handling my child like that? Is not a piece of meat or a rag doll? Are you crazy? And she said, I'm sorry mother, but it's not hurting him. I said, then I'm done dead. And she took him and put him in a bed, and she put him under the light. Now they had to tape up his eyes and take off all his clothes and just have him in his pampers and put him in the cot. Now my son doesn't like to be touched unnecessarily, and this is from birth, and so he kept banging his hand against the side of the cot that had the IV in it, banging, just banging and crying and banging his hand on the side of the thing. So I had to go and ask them, please wrap his hand with something or put a cushion or something to prevent him from hurting himself. And one of the nurses did so. And I had to leave. When I was leaving, I started to cry. And the doctor's response to me is, where you ball for? Now I'm going home without my child. And your response to me is, what am I crying for? Having to leave my child in the care of somebody who clearly has no idea how to take care of a child. And you're going to ask me, why am I crying? So when I said to you that there is no heart, there is no compassion, there is no humanity. And it's so frustrating. But I'm not one to sit and complain about things. I'm one who's invested in making change, as I've said. And I'm going to figure out a way and constantly pursue ways to educate and to be informed as to what the mindset of the people who are in these positions, making these decisions and acting the way they do, why they behave the way they do, and bring awareness to the fact that this psychological part of things matter just as much as the physical, and dealing with people on a human level matters. So I would love to hear your experiences if you have had any. I'd love to get your feedback. But it goes back to my decision to becoming a mom was not taken lightly. No, I don't think for those persons who do have their children and then get to that place where they make the decision to discard of them or leave them in random places, that's also a choice that we are not aware of the factors, their mental state, why they believe this was the only option they had. So as horrific as it is, I try my best to not judge them too harshly. I won't say that I don't judge them, because I do, because there are other options. You can leave them at the hospital, you can leave them at a church, you can leave them at a fire station, and nobody will ask you any questions. You just simply need to say, I do not want this child, or just leave them there and walk away, and they will be taken care of. But again, it goes back to the mental state of where these women are, what their situations may be, and why they felt that this was the only choice they had. I could go on and on and on about this topic. So we're gonna pick up on this next week. I hope you enjoyed the discussion, or I hope you enjoyed my ranting. And I would love to hear your views. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, so we can have this discussion and keep it going. And I'm serious, guys, if you know anybody in the health ministry who is part of the decision making, I would genuinely love to have a conversation with them so that I can better understand the decisions that are being made for our prenatal sector in this country. Thank you so much for joining Purple Conversations again. Please go, and I'm going to put the link to the GoFundMe below so that you can go and give your donations. Please also share that link so that these and the MAPS program that I have is geared towards helping. It's called Moms Matter Assistance Program, and it is geared towards helping those who are pregnant and in need. So thank you so much for joining me again on Purple Conversations. It's been fun, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful day.